Some stories don't need to be exaggerated. Some stories don't need music or special effects or dramatic editing to make your skin crawl. Some stories just need to be told, exactly as they happened. Tonight I have 3 of them. 3 real accounts. 3 moments where ordinary people's lives cracked open and something terrible fell through. Get comfortable. Turn the lights down. Let's begin. The neighbor who watched. This story comes from a woman I'll call Sarah. She posted her account on Reddit in 2019, and it spread across multiple true crime and horror communities before she eventually deleted it. Screenshots still exist. People who were there remember it. Sarah lived alone in a mid-rise apartment building in a mid-sized city. 4th floor. She'd lived there for about 2 years. Quiet building, quiet life. She worked from home, which meant she spent a lot of time in her apartment. A lot of time near the windows. She never thought much about the building across the alley, maybe 30 feet away. Close enough that you could see the lights in the windows at night. But she never really looked. You don't when you live in a city. You develop a kind of deliberate blindness. You stop seeing what's right in front of you. That's what he was counting on. It started with a feeling. She wrote about this specifically. Not something she saw, not something she heard. Just a feeling. The particular prickling discomfort of being watched. She'd be sitting at her desk working and she'd have to stop, have to look up, have to glance at the window. Nothing. Just the building across the alley. Just the windows. She ignored it for weeks. Then, one evening, a friend came to visit. They were sitting in the living room, and the friend glanced toward the window and said, casually, not alarmed, "Does your neighbor always do that?" Sarah looked. In the window directly across from hers, on the same floor, a man was standing. Just standing. In the dark, looking out, looking at her apartment. She told herself it was nothing. People stand at windows. She didn't know the man. She'd seen lights on over there before, but never paid attention. She told herself she was being paranoid. 3 weeks later, she was looking something up on a local Facebook community group. Noise complaints, she thinks, something mundane. When she found a post that stopped her cold, someone had posted asking if anyone recognized a woman in a series of photos. The photos were taken from above, through a window, looking into an apartment interior. The woman in the photos was sitting at a desk, standing in a kitchen, moving through her living room. The apartment in the photos was Sarah's. The woman in the photos was Sarah. There were 64 photos, dated across 8 months. He had been photographing her, through his window and her window, for 8 months. Every photo time-stamped. Many of them taken at night using a long lens, when she had her lights on and couldn't see out into the darkness. She called the police. They investigated. The man across the alley, she never learned much about him, had posted the photos himself, apparently hoping someone would identify her so he could find out her name. He had never spoken to her, never contacted her, never entered her building. He had just watched. The thing that Sarah said in her post, the line that people kept quoting in the comments, the line I keep coming back to, was this: "The worst part isn't that he was watching me. The worst part is that I had looked at that window 100 times, and I had never once thought to look at who was standing in it." She moved shortly after. I don't know if she ever stopped feeling watched. Story 2. The Wrong House. This next story was reconstructed from 911 call, transcripts, and a police report that was later covered by a local news outlet. The names have been changed. The details have not. A family, parents and 2 kids, ages 9 and 13, had driven up to their lake house for a long weekend in October. They arrived late, around 11 p.m. The kids were asleep in the back seat. The parents were tired. They pulled in, unloaded the car quietly, put the kids to bed, and went to sleep themselves. They had been asleep for maybe 2 hours when the mother woke up. She didn't know why at first. That happens sometimes. You just surface from sleep for no reason. She lay there in the dark for a moment, and then she heard it. Footsteps. Downstairs. Slow and deliberate, moving through the kitchen. She woke her husband. He heard it too. They lay completely still, listening, trying to convince themselves it was the house, or an animal, or anything other than what they both knew it was. Then they heard a cabinet open, then close. Someone was in their house. The husband grabbed his phone. The wife slipped out of bed and went silently to the children's rooms, moving them both into the master bedroom, shutting and quietly locking the door. 4 people now. 1 locked door, 1 phone. He called 911. The dispatcher told them to stay quiet, stay in the room, stay on the line. Officers were on the way. What the 911 transcript captures next is 7 minutes. 7 minutes of the family sitting in that locked room, in the dark, listening to the man downstairs move through their home. He wasn't rushing. That's the detail that gets me. He wasn't grabbing things and leaving. He was moving slowly, methodically, like he had time, like he thought he was alone. At one point, his footsteps came upstairs. The transcript shows a gap. The 911 dispatcher whispering, the family going completely silent. The footsteps moved down the hall, stopped outside a bedroom door. The children's room, empty because their mother had moved them. He tried the handle. Then he moved on. He never tried the master bedroom door. Police arrived 7 minutes after that and found him in the living room. He was not a professional burglar. He was a young man from a nearby town who had picked the house at what appeared to be random, assumed it was empty because the driveway had been clear when he'd checked it earlier that day, before the family arrived. He had not expected anyone to be home. The mother gave a brief interview to the local paper afterward. She said the thing she couldn't stop thinking about was those 7 minutes, sitting in the dark, listening to him try the door. She said, "He had no idea we were there." And that was the most terrifying thing of all, because it meant if we had made a single sound, everything would have changed. Next story called The Last Message. I want to tell you something before I start this last one. I've spent a lot of time with dark stories, a lot of time reading case files, forum threads, police reports, first-hand accounts from people who've been through things they can't explain and things they wish they couldn't remember. You develop a kind of armor after a while. A professional distance. This story got through the armor. I'm telling you that up front because I think you deserve to know what you're walking into. It begins with something completely ordinary. A group chat. 8 friends. college-aged, close in the way that only happens when you've spent years in each other's lives. Late nights, shared meals, the kind of friendship that becomes its own language. Their group chat had been running for 4 years, hundreds of messages, inside jokes that would take an hour to explain to an outsider, birthday messages, stupid memes, the mundane architecture of a real friendship. One of the 8, I'll call him Marcus, went missing on a Tuesday evening in the spring. He left his apartment, told no one where he was going, didn't come back. His roommate waited a day, assuming he'd gone to visit someone and forgotten to mention it. But Marcus's charger was still plugged in by his bed. His jacket, the one he wore everywhere, was still on the hook by the door. His keys were gone. That was all. The roommate reported it on the 2nd day. Police opened a case. The group chat changed immediately. That particular shift that happens when something is wrong and no one wants to say it directly. Short messages, check-ins. Has anyone heard from him? Did he say anything to you? Should we be worried? The answer was no. No one had heard from him. No one knew where he'd gone. And yes, they should be worried. They just didn't know how worried yet. They spent 2 days in that suspended, horrible state of not knowing. 2 days of watching his name at the top of the chat, waiting for the little indicator that said he was typing. It never came. Until the 3rd day. Marcus texted the group. The message said, "Hey, sorry I've been quiet. I'm okay. I just needed some space. Don't worry about me." 11 words that changed the entire atmosphere of that chat in an instant. The relief was immediate and enormous. You can imagine it. 8 people grabbing their phones, reading that message, exhaling for the first time in 2 days. Someone typed, "Thank God." Someone else sent about 15 question marks. "Where are you? Are you okay? Call us. What happened? Are you coming back?" The responses came flooding in, overlapping, the way they do when a group of people are all typing at the same time. Marcus didn't reply. An hour passed. The messages kept coming. More worried now, the relief curdling slightly at the edges. "Marcus, just let us know you're okay. You don't have to explain anything, just say something." Then, one more message from his number. "I'm fine. Stop asking." Four words, flat, almost irritated. And then, nothing. No more messages, no replies to the flood of responses that followed. His status went quiet again. The group was confused, relieved, still, but confused. It didn't sound quite like Marcus, but people act strangely when they're going through something. They'd all been there. They gave him space. What they didn't know, what the investigators told them shortly afterward, was that Marcus's phone had already been found 2 days earlier, sitting at the bottom of a storm drain, 4 miles from his apartment. No battery, no SIM card. Someone had removed both. The messages had not come from Marcus's phone. Someone had his SIM card and had waited, deliberately waited, 3 full days before using it, before deciding the right moment to reach into a group of 8 frightened, grieving people and tell them to stop looking. Think about what that decision required. It required knowing the group chat existed. It required knowing Marcus well enough to approximate his voice. Casual, slightly dismissive, the particular way he had of brushing off concern when he didn't want to talk about something. The second message especially. "I'm fine. Stop asking." That's not a random string of words. That's a studied impression. Someone who had watched him, listened to him, knew how he communicated. And it required a specific, calculated cruelty, because it worked. For hours, those 8 people stood down, stopped calling the police with updates, stopped canvassing, stopped pushing, because they believed, because they so desperately wanted to believe, that he was okay. That window of time mattered. When the investigators explained what had happened, when they sat down with the group and told them about the phone, about the SIM card, about the messages, one of the friends described the room going completely silent, like the air had been taken out, because the relief they'd felt, that enormous exhale on day 3, had been manufactured. Someone had reached inside their love for their friend and used it against them, had found the exact pressure point. He's okay, stop looking, and pressed it with precision. The investigation shifted completely after that. The messages were traced. That process took time, and I won't detail it here because this involves a real ongoing case and real people still living inside it. What I will tell you is that they led somewhere, that Marcus was found. I'll let you sit with what that means. One of Marcus's friends spoke about it afterward, briefly and publicly, in a way that I think was incredibly brave, given what she'd been through. She said a lot of things I've thought about since, but the one that stays with me, the one I keep returning to, was this. She said, "We were so relieved when that message came in. We wanted so badly for it to be real. We needed it to be real." And that's exactly what they were counting on. They didn't just know Marcus. They knew us. They knew how much we loved him. And they used that. Hold. Long silence. That's the part of this story that I can't shake. Not the mechanics of it, not even the outcome, but that someone looked at a group of people bound together by years of genuine love and friendship and saw not people, but a tool, a lever, something to be manipulated at exactly the right moment for exactly the right amount of time. That kind of coldness doesn't come from nowhere. It's practiced, it's deliberate, and it's the most human horror I know.